Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Charlotte Flores. I am studying for a Master's of Science in Animal Welfare, Behavior, Ethics, and Law, and today I will be presenting on the XL bully breed ban of 2023 in the UK. This presentation will cover some policy analysis, animal welfare concerns, and some additional considerations, and it is quite a timely presentation because February 1st was when the ban went into effect in the UK. Quick look at the new legislation itself, which is really just an addition to existing legislation. It started with the Dangerous Dog Act of 1991, which is a piece of UK legislation that prohibited people from having possession of dogs that belong to breeds deemed disproportionately aggressive or dangerous. When this act was put in place, the breeds included were American Pit Bull Terriers, the Japanese Tosa, Dogge Argentinos, and the Fila Brasileiro. The XL bully breed, pictured here, is actually simply an addition to the Dangerous Dog Act of 1991. So rather than this being a separate piece of legislation, it is just an expansion on existing legislation. The addition of the bully breed prohibits the ownership, breeding, rehousing of bully breeds unless exemption is successfully received, and dogs found not exempt must be euthanized. Dogs that are able to get exemption must follow strict restrictions, including being muzzled and leashed in public, getting insured, being neutered, being microchipped, and owners will be required to pay a fee to have them exempt. We will now go on to talk a bit about the UK policy timeline, which obviously started with the 1991 Dangerous Dog Act. On the 31st of October 2023, the UK government announced plans to add bully breeds to the Dangerous Dog Act. On the 31st of December, it became illegal to breed, sell, advertise, rehome, or abandon an XL bully breed dog. On the 31st of January 2024, the deadline to apply for a certificate of exemption or to have dogs who were not going to apply for exemption euthanized passed. And on the 1st of February 2024, it became completely illegal to own an unregistered XL American bully dog. The Scottish timeline differs a bit. The 23rd of February 2024 is when it became illegal to breed, sell, advertise, rehome, or abandon bully breeds, and it won't be until the 31st of July 2024 that it will become fully illegal to own an American Bully XL dog if they are not registered on the Index of Exempt Dogs in Scotland. So, what dogs are subject to the ban? The ban applies to all dogs typed as XL bully breeds, and I say type because bully breed is not actually a registered dog breed. Rather, it is a mix of dog breeds including pit bulls, American bulldogs, and English bulldogs. Breed identification, therefore, continues to be visual, and it must be performed by non-specialists as there are no DNA markers to identify whether a dog is a bully breed. You will see the government definition of XL bully on the slides in front of you, as well as a quote which states, "Bully breeds have a muscular body and blocky head, suggesting great strength and power for their size." This obviously caused quite a bit of confusion amongst owners who were unsure if their dogs were included in the ban or not. So, how many dogs in the UK are affected by this legislation? Dr. David Martin, veterinary head at Evidensia, told MPs that he believed there to be at least 50,000, but up to 100,000 XL bullies in the UK. 35,000 dogs were registered by the January deadline, and 150 to 200 were euthanized using the government's compensation. That means approximately 15,000 dogs are unregistered as the ban comes into effect, and this is a low estimate because there may be up to 100,000 in the UK, but this is based on the 50,000 estimate. Of the ban is a bit less robust than one might imagine, but failure to comply nonetheless is heavily penalized. The public is encouraged to report suspected illegal ownership of XL bully breeds, and there are 137 dog legislation officers across England and Wales who have been trained to assess and identify banned breeds, and there's training ongoing to recruit a further 60 dog legislation officers. If someone is found in illegal possession of an XL bully breed, their dog will be immediately seized and kennelled to be assessed, and if they are found to be a bully breed or to meet the criteria, they will later be euthanized. Owners will also be subject to possible criminal charges and an unlimited fine if found to be in possession of a bully breed after the deadline to register them. It is a police dog legislation officer who would assess and determine whether or not the dog is of an illegal breed. So this goes back to the point we were talking about in the last slide. There is a bit of ambiguity there, and there is no clear way of determining exactly whether or not a dog qualifies as an XL bully breed dog. The decision to ban bully breeds in the UK came somewhat as a quick turnaround. It was prompted by a high-profile attack on a man named Ian Price, which was committed by two XL bully breed dogs in September of 2023. The owner of these dogs who attacked Ian had been questioned by the police before, multiple times on similar non-fatal incidents. But this incident in particular, as it was fatal, got a lot of news coverage, and statistics came out on the rise of dog attacks in recent years in the UK in general. You'll notice on the right here, there's a graph that shows that police recorded a 34% rise in dog attacks over the 5 years between 2018 and 2022. And if you look closely, you'll notice that 2021 saw a 2,000 plus incident increase in dog attacks when compared to 2020. The 15th of September was the day that Rishi Sunak released a statement promising to ban XL bully breed dogs in light of the attacks, calling them a danger to our communities. All in all, the decision came in somewhat of a perfect storm. There was public fear of XL bully breeds amidst media outcry, and there was a desire for quick political solutions to ease public worry. In considering the ethics of breed-specific bans, one of the most important questions is whether a dog can truly be predisposed to being aggressive or bad. A lot of people see the ban as unethical and discriminatory. You'll see there are protesters here with signs such as "Don't bully my bully" or "Blame the owner, not the breed." One of the main arguments is that bad dog ownership is more the root cause of dog aggression than breed-specific predisposition to aggression. And the amount of attacks actually caused by bully breeds is unknown / was undisclosed by the UK government, which means that the amount of bully breeds involved is no doubt a fraction of those living as companion animals in the UK, which, as we saw in the previous slide, was approximately 50,000 to 100,000. Now, there has been a bit of research in the US context done on the social implications of breed-specific legislation. Some believe that breed-specific legislation can be prejudiced against certain demographics that are more likely to own these breeds, which would mean that breed-specific bans may disproportionately affect already marginalized groups depending on the breeds in question. So there may be an additional social aspect to this, but as I said, this has not yet been researched in the UK context. The Dog Control Coalition, which consisted of the organizations pictured in the circle here, were leading the fight against breed-specific legislation in the UK. And this was on the basis of mostly effectiveness. They argued that there was no robust research to demonstrate that these breeds, or types, in the case of XL bullies, are any more aggressive than other dogs. There were a few other points they made as well, one being that most dog attacks and deaths happen at home, or when a dog escapes, so the measures won't reduce bites in the places they happen most often, and that difficulties in identifying banned breeds could lead to mistakes and cause unnecessary harm to dogs and owners. And as we looked at, there is some subjectivity in what dogs are considered XL bullies. A few other considerations included that the ban introduced was put into action very quickly, and not much guidance was given from the government for owners. It was also done without knowing whether vets and shelters would have the capacity to house or euthanize the dogs, and without knowing if law enforcement officers would have enough space to kennel the non-exempt dogs. Main points made against breed-specific legislation is that attack increases cannot actually reliably be traced to increases in bully breed ownership or any dog breed in that regard. Dog bites have risen in the last 20 years despite the Dangerous Dogs Act. There has been approximately a 154% rise in the past 20 years. And the increase in dog injuries predates the introduction of XL bullies to the UK in 2014. Furthermore, between 1989 and 2017, 48 people died in dog-related incidents, but of the 62 dogs involved, 53 were dog breeds not on the prohibited list in the Dangerous Dogs Act. And, as I mentioned before, there is no data on exactly how many of the attacks in 2021 were perpetrated by XL bullies. But Sunak's announcement stated that the numbers were disproportionate, although he did not release numbers on exactly how many of the attacks related to XL bullies, so there is no robust information on that. One expert interviewed for The Guardian said that breed-specific legislation was like introducing a gun ban to stop shooting deaths, but only outlawing one make and model of gun. In doing research for this presentation, I became interested in the question as to whether there could be another explanation for the increase in dog attacks in the UK that had nothing to do with an increase in bully breeds. If we look at the statistics that prompted the ban, between 2001 and 2021, there was an average of 3 fatal dog attacks annually. In 2022, there was a sudden increase in dog attack fatalities, with 10 people dying from dog bite injuries in that year alone. You may notice that 2022 and 2021 are directly post-pandemic, and you may have seen some headlines about there being an increase in pet ownership in general throughout the pandemic. The information I'm about to present has not been put forth by the Dog Control Coalition. It is simply speculation and personal research on my part, but I do find it to be an interesting piece of this conversation. So here is a graph on the number of dogs in the UK in millions, and as you'll see, between 2020 and 2021, there was a 3.5 million increase of individual dogs in the UK. In this graph, the share of households owning a pet in the United Kingdom is shown, and you will see that between 2020 and 2021, there was an 18% increase in the share of UK households that owned a pet. An article from the BBC is pictured here, which states that households bought 3.2 million pets in lockdown. So it is possible that the increase in dog attacks may have more to do with a general population increase than a population increase of a specific breed. There are significant welfare implications for those dogs who are affected by the ban, and these do infringe on some of the welfare needs in the 5 welfare needs framework. These include the need to express normal behaviors, the need for positive physical health, and the need for suitable companionship. Some of the risks include a risk of abandonment due to unwillingness on an owner's part to euthanize or apply for exemption for their dog. In addition, there may be stress from being seized or held in kennels by law enforcement. And euthanasia can also be considered a welfare issue, especially in light of the fact that most of the dogs being euthanized under the ban would otherwise be healthy and not be normal candidates for euthanasia. Of course, for those dogs who do get exemption, there are still severe restrictions on their daily life and changes, including muzzle requirements and leash requirements in public spaces, which can lead to a lack of socialization opportunities, which can then lead to increased aggression amongst these dogs. You will see I've included an excerpt from a research paper on the use of muzzles and their effect on dogs. This was an online survey of owners, and 19.6% of owners surveyed reported that when wearing a muzzle, there were negative effects on their dog's behavior. Many of them reported their dog feeling apathetic, dull, passive, nervous, sad, etc. when they were forced to wear a muzzle. To the implications for dogs themselves, there are also implications for the owners of these dogs. Owners are forced to grapple with additional responsibilities and rules, emotional stress due to the risk of losing their pets, and general stigmatization from the public and the media. There are also additional costs that come with owning an XL bully breed now, and during a cost of living crisis, this is something that is not very easy for a lot of people. On the bottom here is a quote from the American Veterinary Medical Association, which asserts that aggressive behavior and biting in dogs does not only depend on genetics, but also other factors such as hereditary experience, socialization and training, health, and victim behavior. I've also included 2 research papers to kind of illustrate the trade-off between owner well-being and dog well-being. The first paper found that inadequate socialization, inactivity, and urban living environments were associated with social fearfulness in pet dogs. Of course, some of the restrictions placed on these dogs by the ban could lead to inadequate socialization, inactivity, etc., which could make aggression worse among some of these dogs. The second article looks at the trade-off between dog owner mental health and dog behavioral problems, and they did find a link between poor owner mental health and behavioral issues in dogs. So these additional constraints put upon owners by the ban could in fact negatively impact their dog's behavior in a way that may not have been foreseen by proponents of the legislation. I'd like to end this presentation by looking at the effectiveness of breed-specific legislation in other countries that have implemented it. In Italy in 2003, the Minister of Health issued an ordinance to protect the public from potentially dangerous dogs. They provided a list of dogs considered to have marked predisposition to aggression and put limits on their ownership, as well as required them to be muzzled and leashed in public. Some research and assessment was done on the actual effectiveness of this policy using data on dog bite and attack instances, and what they found is that the ordinance did not actually cause any significant change on the trend of dog bites in the short term or in the long term. Spain had also implemented similar legislation called the Spanish Dangerous Animals Act, which applied almost the same restrictions on breeds deemed dangerous, and what this 10-year retrospective study found is that the act itself did not produce a reduction in dog bite fatalities over the last decade. Finally, Lower Saxony in Germany also had some breed-specific legislation put into place to limit the ownership and mitigate the risk of so-called dangerous dogs. And this study at the bottom here did not look at attack and bite data. Rather, it looked at temperament of two dog breeds, golden retrievers who were used as a control breed, and then a cohort of dogs who were banned in the German legislation. All of the dogs were given temperament assessments, which allowed them to understand the aggression risk from each individual dog, and then put together information on whether there really is a link between breed and aggression. Ultimately, the results of this study did not support the assumption that certain breeds are inherently more dangerous. After determining this fact, the breed-specific legislation in Lower Saxony was changed, and the breeds list was withdrawn. We have now come to the end of the presentation. I hope you have enjoyed. I have given a quick overview of the breed-specific legislation in the UK, specifically relating to bully breeds, and given a bit of an analysis of not only breed-specific legislation itself, but the effectiveness, ethics, and welfare implications of it on pets and owners. Here are all of the references used in the research for this presentation. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you very, very much. Have a nice rest of your day.